The opinions and views expressed by individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of this network, their group, or other organization they may be involved with.
I'm looking at myself, reflections of my mind. It's just the kind of day to leave myself behind. So gently swaying through the fairyland of love. If you'll just come with me, you'll see the beauty of Tuesday evening news. Tuesday evening
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Psychedelic Reporters for this Tuesday, the 17th, episode 162, here on NOK Network, the video news podcast focused on psychedelic medicine being reported in mainstream media. Shout out to the guys in Dead Ringer from Kirkland Lake, Ontario, for the awesome intro track, originally recorded by the Moody Blues, with some customized changes for our show. I am joined by my amazing joint host, Tara Simpson, along with one and only Buffo Various, who has chosen all of our stories for us. Hello, Tara.
Well, hello, hobbies, and hello, everyone. I'd like to take a minute to introduce Bufo. He's our Sonoran desert toad, or Colorado mud toad. Did you know he emits DMT from his skin? And while that sounds like great fun, park rangers would like to remind everyone, please don't lick that toad. Don't do it. Don't do it.
One of these days, my co-host for the puppets is going to be, I think, a Bufo. Yep. No, I think it's going to be the mushroom and the Bufo, and then he's going to be like, "Don't lick me, I don't lick you." Yeah. So we have an exciting week of news for you, and our first one comes out of marijuanamoment.net, right here in our puppet's home area, Louisiana. Louisiana Senate votes to create Psychedelics Task Force focused on benefits for military veterans. And this is published by Kyle Baker.
Yeah, so this is an interesting article. The Louisiana Senate has passed a Republican-led resolution calling for the establishment of a task force to study and make recommendations on the potential therapeutic benefits of psychedelics for military veterans. Senator Patrick McMath, Republican, filed the legislation on Tuesday proposing the creation of a task force on alternate therapies for veterans, and the Senate ununanimously adopted it on Wednesday. The measure calls for a 9-member panel to study whether certain psychedelic therapies may be beneficial to Louisiana veterans and to propose recommendations together with specific proposals for legislation by written report to the legislature. The task force would be comprised of the chair of the Senate Committee on Health and Welfare, the governor or designee, the secretaries of the State Department of Health, and the Department of Veterans Affairs or designees. The chancellor of 2 schools within Louisiana State University or designees, the president of the Louisiana Hospital Association, or a designee, and a physician and veteran. For our military veterans, many of the deepest wounds of war are invisible. The whereas section of the resolution says, and our veterans deserve every opportunity to try therapy that alleviates the functional and neuropsychiatric symptoms of traumatic brain injury. It says that there are some psychedelic therapies which may be beneficial to treating mental health, citing psilocybin, MDMA, ibogaine, and ketamine as examples. The task force would be required to study clinical trials in psychedelics for certain medical health conditions, current scientific literature on the issue, actions by the Federal Food and Drug Administration related to this research, treatment guidelines for psychedelic therapy, and patient access considerations, including affordability, availability, accessibility, training, and licensure, and other regulatory requirements. McMath said on the Senate floor on Wednesday that all we are doing here is creating a task force on alternate therapies for veterans. This is something that's been taking place in a number of other states, and we're going to study this over the next 12 months, he said. The resolution says the task force shall terminate on the date of the submission of its report on February 1st, 2026. A Senate resolution, the measure does not need to be approved by the House of Representatives or the governor to be enacted. Meanwhile, in Louisiana, that bill would have established a tax system to prepare the eventual legalization of adult use marijuana, had an initial committee hearing last month where members narrowly rejected the plan.
Yeah, thank God for that.
Yeah.
Man. But anyways, HB 636 was intended to work in tandem with a separate bill from Representative Candace Newell, Democrat, HB 627, which would create a 3-year pilot program that is designed to test, evaluate perimeters of implementation of a permanent adult use cannabis program. According to the legislative analyst, the bill filings come nearly a year after the Republican governor of Louisiana signed bills to decriminalize marijuana paraphernalia and enact restrictions on market. That came the same day Governor Landry R. vetoed a measure that would allow him future governors to issue pardons for people with past cannabis convictions. He gave final approval to the paraphernalia decriminalization proposal from Representative Delisha Boyd, Democrat. As it stands, Louisiana, possession up to 14 grams of a half an ounce of marijuana is decriminalized, punishable by a $100 fine with the threat of jail time. Former Governor John Bell Edwards also signed into a law measure that was designed for streamlining punishments for people with the first-time marijuana convictions. I'm kind of happy that one bill, because the way they were written it with bringing it into recreational, and I know we're psychedelic, not marijuana show, but anywho, when they brought it into that, they wanted to give all the money to DHS and take it out of the school and medical marijuana programs that they built, and that, to me, that would not be a good foundation of the program. And so now that they're doing the studies again with the mushrooms, like how they were doing with the medical stuff, and we have read about the DAA hearings where the Louisiana guy that was doing the psychedelic study is taking out the trip part for cancer and fighting for it. So, I mean, this is a state that's been fighting for medical for years.
Absolutely. So I'm glad they're not taking any steps backwards. That would be detrimental to so many people. We know that this is safe. We know it's effective. We're all consenting adults.
Yeah, right. And speaking about consenting in adults and getting medications to the right patients, our next news article comes out WRAL.com. And this is going to be a nice little video we're going to watch. And it's about North Carolina veterans push state lawmakers for access to psychedelic therapy.
Yeah, this is kind of exciting. It's not really an article, like we said. It's more a video, but the details of it go on. Sally Roberts, a world-class wrestler and Army veteran, credits psychedelic-assisted therapy with saving her life from post-traumatic stress disorder. She joined other veterans and advocates this week to urge North Carolina lawmakers to prepare for the potential FDA approval of MDMA and other psychedelics for the treatment of post-traumatic stress disorder.
Let's run it.
Advocates came to Raleigh this week to push for more access to psychedelic therapy for PTSD specifically. They say the FDA could soon approve MDMA, otherwise known as ecstasy, and other drugs as breakthrough therapies, and they want the state to be ready to authorize it here. WRAL's Capitol Bureau Chief Laura Leslie is joining us live in the state legislative building with one veteran story. Laura.
As a world-class wrestler and also an Army active combat veteran, Sally Roberts knows a little something about how to put up a fight, but she nearly lost her battle with PTSD. She says psychedelic-assisted therapy saved her life, and she wants lawmakers to help her bring it home here to North Carolina.
I didn't know where to go. I didn't know who to talk to.
Army veteran Sally Roberts' PTSD was getting worse. Therapy didn't help. Neither did the VA's standard cocktail of medications for it.
At first, it felt like I was on rocket boosters and I could achieve everything and I was this superwoman. And eventually the rocket ran out of gas and I had an epic implosion.
A friend suggested psychedelic-assisted therapy. Roberts went to Mexico for treatment with ibogaine, a hallucinogen that's not legal in the U.S. She says it changed everything.
Absolutely saved my life. I had made the decision that if for any reason I went down to Mexico for ibogaine and it did not work, that I was not going to come back alive because I could no longer live in the state of despair that I was in.
Roberts is now an advocate for psychedelic-assisted therapy, one of many who came to the legislature this week to ask state lawmakers for help for veterans and others suffering from trauma. An estimated 182 veterans commit suicide every year in North Carolina alone, says Senator Sophia Chitlick.
We don't have perfect numbers on that, but I would argue that every single one of those is a preventable tragedy.
Chitlick said North Carolina has the highest number of veterans per capita in the country, so we should be at the forefront of research into these drugs when they win FDA approval so veterans here can be treated close to home.
Because we have world-class universities like UNC, NC State, and Duke, of course, which is in my district. We have that infrastructure in the city of Medicine and beyond to be the leading researchers on this topic.
Now, advocates say that MDMA or ecstasy may be approved by the FDA as a breakthrough therapy by the end of the year. Chitlick is sponsoring a bill to create a state task force of experts to figure out what exactly North Carolina would have to do to get those therapies available to the public. Other states, I should add, are also taking action on this issue. Laura Leslie, WRAL News, live in Raleigh.
That's awesome. That's so awesome that someone with her, I guess, social standing has come out to talk about her experience with ibogaine, of all things, which is a hot topic in a lot of places.
Good job, North Carolina. Oh,
Yeah.
man. Yeah. So the MDMA with the studies and all these states and countries looking at it and doing this, you would think, well, and I know money's tight right now, but you would think these fundings would be a little more like fuller, I guess, like that we would be reading this each week in a state.
Yeah. But again, there's a lot of pushback from, the big pharma people, and it takes, I guess, money to make them change their minds. And most patients don't have that kind of money, right? So for them, it's not a big like, hey, let's give this to people, because again, if everyone's well, then those companies are going to lose money on pharmaceuticals.
Oh man, and
Right. She even said she took that Veterans Affairs standard dosing protocol of pharmaceuticals, which did nothing.
Right. Yeah. So our next article comes out of businesswire.com, and it states that Cybin provides corporate update and highlights positive regulatory signals for psychedelic therapeutics. Wow.
Yeah. So patient dosing is underway in the phase 3 CYB003 Paragam program in major depressive disorder, with expected combined enrollment of approximately 550 patients across 3 studies through Approach, Embrace, and Extend. Partnerships with Osmind and Thermo Fisher Scientific strengthens the company's commercialization and manufacturing capabilities. Positive regulatory signals from the U.S. agencies amid expanding media coverage could expedite regulatory pathways across Cybin's clinical stage pipeline. So this comes out of Toronto, and it's Cybin, a clinical stage breakthrough neuropsychiatry company committed to revolutionizing mental health care by developing new and innovative next-generation treatment options, today provides a corporate update. It's especially gratifying that a time when we are advancing our clinical pipeline program with our lead program, CYM003, in phase 3 development, and the path towards approval and eventual commercialization of psychedelic therapeutics is gaining clarity, said Doug Drysdale, Chief Executive Officer of Cybin. With our expanding intellectual property portfolio and a number of key partnerships in place, we believe our rigorous research and novel clinical approach can lead to transformation in how mental health disorders are treated. Now it is time to address the mental health crisis, and we are encouraged by recent sentiment in favor of expediting the regulatory review process for product candidates in development. So recent corporate highlights: continue to expand its strategic clinical partnership SPA program in support of the phase 3 Paragam program. The SPA program is designed to facilitate collaboration among sites, enhance efficiency in trial operations, and improve overall site performance. Partnered with Thermo Fisher Scientific, a world-class manufacturing partner, to provide U.S.-based manufacturing for CYM003 program. CYM broadened its existing strong relationship with Thermo Fisher Scientific to include the development of both the drug substance and drug product capsules for CYM003. Partnered with Osmind, a leading provider to psychiatry practices in the U.S., with the objective of accelerating commercial preparation for clinical stage pipeline. Osmind advanced psychiatry through technology and services to bring innovative mental health treatments to patients in need. CYM will leverage Osmind's 800 clinic network, point of care software, and real world data to support commercial preparations for its clinical stage pipeline, and continue to expand the intellectual property portfolio with 2 additional U.S. patent supporting lead programs, CYM003 and CYM004, bringing the total to over 90 granted patents and over 230 pending applications. The recently issued patents are for as follows. U.S. Patent 12291-499 includes pharmaceutical compositions and oral dosage forms within the SIM003 program and is expected exclusivity until 2041. The U.S. Patent 12318-477 is expected to provide exclusivity until 2040 and includes claims to novel formulations of DMT and how do you pronounce that?
I would say deuterated.
Yeah, isoprolobes for intramuscular injection, including SIM003 or 004. Wow, so it looks like they're looking at injecting this DMT. Is that like, it must be a thing?
Yeah, right. And so positive regulatory signals, evolving acceptance of potential therapeutic value of psychedelics. Recent statements and hiring decisions of senior U.S. Health and Human Services and FDA officials, in addition to ongoing signs of bipartisan congressional support, suggest an improved forward regulatory environment for psychedelic medicine and therapies, including the potential for accelerated approval pathways. The company believes that these developments, together with increased political recognition and public understanding of science and underpinning these programs, have the potential to expedite regulatory pathways and reduce all overall risk across its clinical portfolio. Highlights include in a recent interview, FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty McGarry stated that psychedelic drug review is a top priority and promised an expeditious and rapid review of clinical data. Drug policy lawyer Matthew Zorn has joined HHS as Deputy General Counsel to work on psychedelics policy. He previously challenged the government on matters such as allowing research on cannabis for veterans with PTSD, preventing tryptamines from being scheduled, and fighting for patients across to psilocybin under right to try laws. Navy SEAL turned Congressman Morgan Luttrell recently urged the GOP to embrace compounds such as psilocybin, MDMA, ibogaine to help veterans with PTSD. President Trump's new pick for Surgeon General, Dr. Casey Means, wrote in a recent book that people should consider guided psychedelic therapy. Cybin's chief executive officer Doug Drysdale apparently appeared on Fox News and increasingly sought out by media outlets as a trusted commentator. On June 19, 2025, Doug Drysdale will speak on a panel discussion focused on regulatory landscape and next steps for potential commercialization at a Psychedelic Science 2025 conference taking place June 16th and 20th, 2025 in Denver, Colorado. The panel details are as follows. The home stretch pivotal trials in preparing for launch. Date and time Thursday 19th, 2025, 9:30 a.m. Mountain Time. About Cybin. You want to tell us about it, Tara?
Sure. So Cybin is a late-stage breakthrough neuropsychiatry company committed to revolutionizing mental health care by developing new and innovative next-generation treatment options to address the large unmet need for people who suffer with mental health conditions. With promising proof of concept data, Cybin is working to change the mental health treatment landscape through the introduction of intermittent treatments that provide long-lasting results. The company is currently developing CYB003, a proprietary deuterated psilocin analog, in phase 3 studies for the adjunctive treatment of major depressive disorder, and SIM004, a proprietary deuterated DMT molecule, in a phase 2 study for generalized anxiety disorder. The company also has a research pipeline of investigational H5T receptor-focused compounds. Founded in 2019, Cybin is operational in Canada, the United States, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and Ireland. For company updates or to learn more about Cybin, you can visit the link below.
Wow. It's
pretty cool. They're doing some work.
Yeah. What's the cautionary notes and forward-looking statements?
I think that's more about like the people writing it and stuff.
Oh, okay. No, it's cool. So this is Cybin. We've been reading about Cybin a lot, and I enjoy reading on it because it's like a big corporation. It's kind of like how you guys up in Canada had that big I think in Quebec with the big multi-million dollar mushroom like freezers or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. It's cool that company is actually international. They're in a number of countries doing these studies, so that's pretty cool too.
Oh yes. So you know what else is cool? It's medication time.
I had a feeling you were going to say that. So that means it's time to pay some bills. So stay tuned for a word from some of our sponsors, and then we'll return with more articles Bufo has chosen, making mainstream media news.
Back in 4 minutes and 20 seconds. My lines didn't come up. Here on NOK Network, a word from our sponsors as you get high. Enjoy it. Bye, bye, bye.
Hey, hi, my name is John Mark, aka Sublimator Warrior, and I would like to welcome you to Smoke Signal in Tyendinaga.
One dab make your whole dome drip sweat. One dab make the homies all dip set.
Smoke Signals, Tyendinaga.
Smoke Signals, Tyendinaga.
Smoke Signals, Tyendinaga.
Ooey, ooey, gooey, that's a sticky dab. Might just have to put this one on Instagram.
Smoke Signals, Tyendinaga.
Hold it in, feel it in your wrist.
Smoke Signals, Tyendinaga.
Check us out in Tyendinaga. 55 Highway 49 in Tyendinaga. It's on the res, and we're open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week.
Tune in daily to NOK Network's diverse podcasting lineup. Ganja News Update, Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern with Tara Simpson and Ron McNabb. Waking Up with the Wayniac, Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific with Tombstoner Wayne Cruz from Tombstone, Arizona. Grow 420, Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern with Ron McNabb. Psychedelic Reporters, Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern with Hobbies Puppets and Tara Simpson. Peace, News and Views, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern with Sir Stevo and Kim Cooper. Thursdays we have Open Your Eye with Kim Cooper and Tara Simpson, 8 p.m. Eastern. Followed by Thursday Night Vibes at 9:15 p.m. Eastern with Master and Mama Rochi. The IWK 710 Daily Sesh airs 7 nights a week with our rotating joint hosts, nightly at 7 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for tuning in to all the podcasting on NOK Network.
Woo-hoo-hoo!
Now we get back to the show.
And we're back from our medication session live on Psychedelic Reporters here on NOK Network.
And we have another exciting line of news for you coming at you. Oh crap! I computer it. Fudge. Well, our next article comes out of marijuana.net. And it has Iowa Governor vetoes bill to let doctors prescribe psilocybin after a federal approval of the psychedelic. And this is written by Ben Adler.
Yeah, so Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds, Republican, has vetoed a bill that would have allowed doctors in the state to immediately prescribe a form of psilocybin in the event of federal approval of the psychedelic substance by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. Reynolds, who announced her veto of a number of bills on Wednesday, said the lawmaker-approved legislation surrenders state authority to make an informed determination about the classification of federal officials at the FDA. The measure HF 383 passed the Senate in April after a 47-0 vote on a 47-0 vote after clearing the House 92-0 in February. If enacted, it would have reclassified the form of psilocybin known as crystalline polymorph psilocybin, or psilocybin, also known as Comp 360, in the event of FDA approval, allowing doctors and pharmacists to prescribe and dispense it in the state. Similar measures were considered by other states this year, including Colorado, where Governor Jared Polis, Democrat, signed it into law, and Virginia, where it was vetoed by Governor Glenn Youngkin, Republican. I recognize and respect the growing body of research into the potential therapeutic benefits of psilocybin for mental health conditions such as depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. Reynolds' veto statement in the Iowa measure said, however, this bill in its current form moves ahead of where our public health system's regulatory framework and law enforcement infrastructure are prepared to go at this time. Psilocybin should first be FDA approved and rescheduled by the DEA before the state of Iowa considers rescheduling, the governor added. The pathway provided for this bill for legalization of psilocybin at the state level before we have a chance to review federal action and prepare robust federally aligned guidelines and safeguards creates legal uncertainty, poses risk for misuse, and could undermine broader efforts to ensure safe and effective therapeutic use in the future. Wow. So it sounds like a whole lot of just words.
Right. Well, we'll think about it. We might do it. You'll enjoy when we do it, but we're not doing it right now.
Yeah, they're missing the whole point. Like the studies are already showing that this, in fact, is helpful. It doesn't have a potential for abuse, and it's not unsafe. Like people aren't going to start just taking it and die of overdoses. You can't eat enough mushrooms to do that to yourself. So at the end of the day, who are they safeguarding here?
Right. Well, and Reynolds framed the veto action as not a dismissal of the emerging science or the sincere advocacy behind the legislation, but instead as a call for a more deliberate and Iowa-centric approach, one that engages state and federal partners, provides time to review any clinical studies and federal changes, and builds a framework for any future therapeutic access that is clear, safe, equitable, and medically sound. In other words, he's CYA and covering your asses.
Yeah.
In addition to sending HF 383 to the governor's desk this year, state lawmakers also considered a more far-reaching psilocybin bill, HF 978, the GOP-led proposal, which is House lawmakers passed 846 in April, would have legalized psilocybin for use for up to 5,000 patients through a patient psychiatric treatment program. It has not moved in the Senate, however, since April.
It keeps going
Oh,
below.
shit. Oh, well, yeah. Oh, my bad. Whether FDA moves forward with approving either substance is uncertain. The agency faced criticism last year after it rejected an application to allow MDMA assisted therapy for people with PTSD. However, some advocates and stakeholders are holding out hope that the tides could shift under the Trump administration, as the president nominated several cabinet officials who back psychedelics reform, including Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as Secretary and U.S. Department of Health and Human Services that oversees the FDA. Other states weighing reform around psilocybin this session included Maine, Minnesota, New Hampshire, New Mexico, and in Iowa this year. Meanwhile, lawmakers considering legislation that could have doubled the number of medical marijuana dispensaries in the state. Wow.
Yeah. As for adult use cannabis legalization, Republican elected officials in the state have been broadly opposed, despite arguments from advocates that a regulated market could bring a significant state tax revenue. And that's where we end.
Oh wow! I didn't know it was that close.
Hilarious.
Yeah. So the interesting thing of this story, and Iowa is strict. They're right next to Wisconsin. They're collecting all the money of everybody driving by, going and getting legal drugs elsewhere. And so they never really fully dip like other states. And so when he said, "Oh, we're gonna treat it like Iowa," and so yeah, they're just gonna arrest everybody driving through.
Yeah. And it sounds like, they're saying, oh, we need to read the studies. Oh, we need to do that. Well, then get the fuck on it. Get the fuck on it. Right? The studies are out there. The studies have been out there for years and years and years, and there's still more studies being done. How many fucking studies do we actually need to show the same thing time and time again, that this actually is helping people? It's actually working better than any pharmaceutical on the market. And I haven't found a study yet that hasn't said that. And that the risk is low, for the potential for abuse is low. So again, what are we waiting for? What are we waiting for? How many more people have to die due to mental health illness or other issues before we start taking a serious look and stop with the political bullshit?
Reputable state colleges and reputable companies are now on human trials for oh fuck. I mean, how many fucking shit now? Yeah, no, I get it. Oh man.
Yeah.
Anyways.
These are supposed to be smart, educated people. Read the fucking studies.
Right. So here comes another study, and this is out of PsyPost.org. PsyPost writes, psilocybin induces large-scale brain network reorganization, offering insights into the psychedelic state. And this is written by Eric Dolan.
Yeah, so this is a really cool article. A new study published in the Translational Psychiatry has provided the most detailed look yet at how psilocybin affects brain activity in rodents. Researchers found that psilocybin produces widespread changes in brain network organization, disrupting normal patterns of communication between brain regions and creating a unique state of high-frequency neural connectivity. These effects varied depending on dose and time, revealing two distinct phases of brain dynamics. Psilocybin is the active compound found in certain mushrooms and has gained attention for its potential to treat conditions such as depression, anxiety, and addiction. When consumed, psilocybin is converted into psilocybin, a substance that binds to serotonin receptors in the brain and produces profound changes in perception, emotion, and sense of self. In humans, psilocybin is known to temporarily alter how different parts of the brain interact, but less is known about how these effects emerge over time or whether animal models can capture the complexity of the psychedelic state. We use neurochemicals and neurophysiological approaches, including brain network changes, to understand the my tongue does not want to work today. Mechanistic base of different states of consciousness, and our ongoing work with psychedelics is another step in that direction, explained study author Dishesh Pal, an associate professor at the University of Michigan. One of the primary changes of studying psychedelics in animal models is the lack of verbal report, but that also makes it fascinating because any evidence, EEG-based metrics for psychedelic states in animal models akin to what occurs in humans could bring us closer to the idea that consciousness is a universal phenomenon. It just manifests in different ways in different species. To address this, the researchers use high-resolution electroencephalography to monitor brain activity across 27 sites in the rat cortex. EEG is a non-invasive technique that measures electrical activity in the brain using sensors placed on the scalp. It records the brain's natural oscillations or brainwaves, which reflects patterns of neural communication across different regions. The goal was to map how psilocybin changes the organization of brain networks and to identify specific patterns of activity that might reflect altered states of consciousness. The study involves 12 adult Sprague Dowley rats, 6 male, 6 female, that were surgically implanted with EEG electrodes. Each rat received intravenous infusions of psilocybin at 3 different doses, 0.1, 1, and 10 milligrams per kilogram, as well as a saline control on separate days. The researchers recorded EEG data before, during, and after each 60-minute infusion, and also monitored behavior through video recordings and movement sensors. By using a continuous infusion method rather than a single injection, the researchers were able to observe gradual changes in brain activity as the drug took effect. Wow.
Can you go one more? Oh, yeah, I found it. The team focused on 3 specific frequency bands in the EEG data. Theta, 410, is that gigahertz?
Yeah.
Media gamma, 70110 HC, and high gamma, 11015 HC. These frequencies are thought to play a role in coordinating communication between brain regions. Psilocybin altered both and strength organization of activity in these bands, but not a simple linear way at moderate doses, 1 milligram kilogram. Psilocybin is increased activity in the posterior theta network and strengthen communication between frontal and parietal brain areas of the gamma bands. The state was marked by widespread increases in high gamma activity in frontal cortex and great connectivity across the distant brain regions. The researchers also found that the psilocybin disrupted the normal relationship between theta and gamma activity, a phenomenon known as phase amplitude coupling. This decoupling was most evident in frontal areas and occurred in dose-dependent fashion. At higher doses, 10 milligrams, a different pattern emerged. Early in the infusion, the brain showed a similar increase in gamma connectivity, but as dose accumulated, the theta connectivity in posterior regions decreased, and the gamma network in frontal cortex became more dominant. These changes unfolded over time, revealing a shift from one state um, of brain organization to another as psilocybin levels rose. Notably, the effects occurred even as the rats became less physically active, suggesting the brain changes were not simple as a result of movement or arousal.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the behavioral data supported this nonlinear pattern. Moderate doses of psilocybin increased the number of head twitch responses, a common indicator of psychedelic activity in rodents, and briefly heightened movement. But at the highest dose, movement decreased significantly after 30 minutes, even though gamma connectivity continued to increase. This suggests that the changes in the brain dynamics were not just reflections of behavior, but may correspond to a unique internal state. It's a bit surprising to note that the changes in the EEG gamma connectivity showed to be closely linked to states of consciousness occurred in the absence of any behavioral activity or after the psilocybin-induced locomotion or the head twitches ceased, Pal told Psych Post. This disassociation suggests the need for careful assessment of head twitch responses as a surrogate for psychedelic or non-ordinary states induced by psychedelic drugs in rodents. To quantify brain network organization, the researchers used measures such as a node degree, the number of connections a brain region has, and the strength of the synchronization between regions. These metrics showed that psilocybin reorganized networks in both frequency-specific and region-specific ways. The theta network typically involved in memory and attention became stronger in posterior regions at moderate doses, but weakened at higher doses. In contrast, the high gamma network, which is thought to reflect the localized activity and potential neuroplasticity, became stronger in frontal areas as the dose increased. One of the most striking findings was the decoupling of the gamma activity from the theta phase. Under normal conditions, gamma bursts tend to occur at specific points in the theta rhythm, a coupling that is thought to help organize information flow in the brain. Psilocybin disrupts this timing relationship, particularly at high doses, suggesting a breakdown in the usual coordination between local and long-range neural signals. This kind of decoupling has been observed in other psychedelic states and is believed to reflect a loosening of the brain's typical constraints, allowing for more flexible or unusual patterns of thought and perception. While the study does not prove that rats experience anything like a human psychedelic trip, the results suggest that the psilocybin state is marked by identifiable changes in brain network architecture that can be studied in animal models. These findings align with reports from human studies showing increased connectivity between distant brain regions and decreased segregation of functional networks during psychedelic experiences. Our findings relate to a brain network changes in this study, along with the data from our laboratory showing cellular and module level neuro changes, shown that rats could indeed be a good model system to study non-ordinary states of consciousness, such as psychedelic state, Pal said. That's pretty interesting.
But yeah, it is. It is. But there are important limitations to consider because rodents cannot report their subjective experience. The researcher cannot directly link changes in brain activity to changes in perception or emotion. Also, the results support a role of serotonin receptor signaling. The study did not manipulate specific receptors to determine their causal role. Additionally, the EEG method used in this study does not measure deep brain structures like the thalamus or claustrum, which also thought to be involved in the psychedelic state. Despite these caveats, and findings have important implications for future research. The ability to map dynamic changes in brain networks during a psychedelic experience opens new avenues for understanding how these drugs affect consciousness and cognition. The study also provides a foundation for testing how different psychedelics might produce similar or distinct patterns of brain activity. One of the main focus areas is to understand if there is any unique neurophysiological or neurochemical signature that can be associated with psychedelic and state in animal models. Pell explained. To that extent, we have completed studies using diverse psychedelics, including subanesthetic ketamine, nitro oxide, and dimethyltryptamine, and psilocybin in recent paper. We intend to mine these data sets for EEG signatures across psychedelics. In addition, we are conducting animal studies to determine the therapeutic potential of psychedelics in alleviating chronic pain. PMID 3811-3836. The study intravenous psilocybin induces dose-dependent changes in functional network organization in rat cortex was authored by Brian Silverstein, Nicholas Colvin, Amanda Nelson, Tai Chung Liu, Peter Guzzo, Jim Gilligan, Anshel Ali, George A. Mashur, Giancarlo Vanini, and Nashpel. Wow, that's pretty cool. It's the animals, though. It's again with the freaking animals, man. It's
Right.
I agree. It's the humans. I want to know about the humans. Make it fucking
Yeah.
safe. Allow humans that feel the same urge and needs of these psychedelics and that are willing to be your, I guess, animal studies in a human brain setting.
Absolutely. I mean, they're getting some very important data, I guess, in the way of looking at how the brain is connecting and not connecting and what it's doing in rats. But again, it's subjective because they can't say what's happening to them. They can't say what they're seeing. They can't say what they're thinking. So really, I mean, yeah, we see the electrical data, but that's not necessarily an accurate picture of how that's going to work in a human model. So it'll be interesting to see if they can get past these trials and maybe do a similar trial with actual humans. That would be my,
Right. Well,
I know they don't like to experiment on humans, but I don't foresee a shortage of volunteers for that study.
It's 2025. If you're not, it's time to let the animals go be animals and let the humans be the studies, because otherwise you're wasting time.
Absolutely.
And I agree within this article when Eric wrote it, or like when dude wrote it, because I was like, man, when I'm like sitting there, oh yeah, because what about the human? The human structure, and no matter how much you fool yourself, do not compare me as a little fucking mouse.
No, exactly, right?
Yeah.
And again, they're treating rats that they don't even know have post-traumatic stress or depression or anxiety or any of the. They're just looking at the brain neuroconnectivity and what it's doing to them. In a human model with a patient who's maybe actually suffering, could that data look different? Right? I mean, we know it's doing things in the brain for these people. It's helping them. So it would be interesting to see if they actually took the right patients and did a trial to see what's happening. That's not data that can be skewed either. So it doesn't even necessarily need to be a blind study, because your brain can't just do things, at your will in that sense, right?
Right. Well, I know an adult that us adult puppets are study. Hey, we're animals, right? I'm a gorilla. Thank you for joining us here on Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network, and for tuning into our video podcast on NOK Network, Rumble, and YouTube pages, as well as social media sites.
We hope you've enjoyed your update today of mainstream media coverage of psychedelic medicine advancements from around the globe.
Many thanks to our sponsors and to my joint host, Tara Simpson, and to Buful of Various for choosing the stories, and to you, our listeners, for joining each week on Psychedelic Tuesday. Let's hear from Dead Ringer again from Kirkland Lake on our way out.
Night.
Woo-hoo-hoo! Reflections of my mind. It's just the kind of day to leave myself behind. So gently swaying through the fairyland of love. If you'll just come with me, you'll see the